Okay, thank you all for joining us today. We're going to be covering how to unlock your academic potential by learning a little bit about psychology, of how we learn, and then how we can use that to learn more effectively. So I'll tell you a bit about myself. My name is Jay Bills. I did my undergraduate degree in psychology at UC Irvine. And that's actually where I started really getting interested in education. I started learning about how we learn. And it really frustrated me that my professors in school didn't seem to be using that information to help students learn better. And so I kind of created my own strategies, which I then applied when I did my master's program at Harvard and also combined with MIT. And I was able to achieve a perfect 4.0 in really some of the highest level classes at Harvard and MIT. And those are really tough classes. And so I want to share with you some of the strategies that I used today. And first I'll kick us off with this quote that I really like. The more that you read, the more things you'll know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. And I like this Dr. Seuss quote because it really gets at the heart of like why we should be learning. I know a lot of times because we're in school, we focus on getting the grades, right? But knowledge is a tool for us that should drive our future, right? It should expand our opportunities. And so while we're thinking about this today, while of course you're gonna be using this to get better grades, I really want you to be thinking about how I can use it to gain more from my education. So like I mentioned today, we'll cover how psychology affects learning, how to hack your psychology, and then we're gonna have two guest speakers with us today, one that's just finished applying to university and one that's just finished applying to boarding schools. And they'll tell you a bit about their pro tips on studying, like note-taking, organization, and time management. And then I'm gonna share with you a final one, how you can speed read up to 600 words per minute with pretty low effort. Okay, so the psychology of learning. First, we got to think about like how our brain is actually doing this, right? We take in information visually, we take in information auditorily. It goes into a sensory memory. We've got about 2 seconds when we hear or see something to decide whether or not we're going to pay attention to it, right? So we actively start thinking about it. If we decide we're going to pay attention, it starts going into our short-term memory. This memory is just a little bit of processing space for us, and it only lasts about 30 seconds, right? Unless we do something with it in that 30 seconds, it will go away, it will disappear, like it never happened. But if we rehearse it, if we do the right things, we can move it into our long-term memory. And then eventually that allows us to go back into those long-term memories and access it. We've learned something. So the 4 areas we're going to be covering when we're thinking about how our psychology works to influence our learning is our attention, our short-term memory, our long-term memory, and then finally our ability to recall. So I'm going to go ahead and have you guys watch this video. If anyone's seen the video before, don't say anything till afterwards, but there's going to be a little task you're going to be trying to accomplish watching this video, so we'll go ahead and
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players
you're
wearing
going to be
white
counting
pass
how many
the
times the
basketball.
white shirt players pass the ball. So try to see if you can get it right.
How many passes did you count? The correct answer is 15 passes.
Did anyone get the right answer?
But did you see the
got it.
gorilla?
But did you see the gorilla? You didn't see the gorilla? This happens to everyone, right? They watch it and There's a gorilla that walks through the scene and they have to see the video for themselves to believe that it was really happened, right? So our attention is limited despite what we tend to believe, right? I'm gonna play for you guys another quite funny video. Is there a way we can have his audio patched through to where it's connecting to the sound? It seemed quite...
Here's a little game, if you don't mind if I try.
Apollo is about to pickpocket this man and take several of his things. You guys watching at home, pay close attention and take note of which items you see him steal.
All right, out of the things that you have inside, which would you say is most valuable? The thing that you had inside your pocket or the gum down below?
Pocket.
Pocket, okay. Now, not this pocket, but the inside pocket.
Yeah, this has my wallet.
All right, may I move this so I can take a peek?
Yeah.
Inside here?
Yeah.
Is your wallet like a bifold leather or what is it?
Yeah, bifold.
Would you bring it out for me? Is there anything inside this pocket or is that a real pocket as well?
No, there's nothing inside there.
Okay, so just that. I'll step over here so you can bring it out for me as well. And check your front pocket here. Did you have something inside?
Yeah, phone charger.
So put these back in a safe place.
Okay, that's usually how
Now,
I have it.
there is something here that you don't mind if I bring this out in public, do you? Yeah, I believe it's rather strange. It was a bit odd. Perhaps you picked that up down below. I'm just going to put it here somewhere where it's safe. And the charger was in your front left pocket or your back right?
Front left.
Front left? Do you remember that exactly?
Yes.
He's already stolen 3 items. Have you caught him yet? Apollo Robbins is going to steal one more thing from this man. But first, he's going to give back the first 3 items he took.
We had all these other items. I believe that's not your scarf, perhaps, but you had one as well, didn't you? A pocket scarf?
Oh, man.
It's cold, too. You should get one of these. There's a really nice thing. I believe that's for you, sir, just as a gift. I think we got everything back to you, didn't we?
Yeah.
Where was that credit card at?
This was in my wallet that was in here.
Show me where it was inside your wallet, just so we make sure that you have everything else, sir.
My wallet's not here.
Oh, you don't have your wallet?
No, you took it.
I'm sorry, perhaps. May I bring that out for a second? I believe down by your front pocket, I believe. Was that something of yours? Well, that was it. And put that back by the front pocket as well. So you have everything else.
Yes.
Good. I'm sorry. I forget to give things back sometimes, so that was very kind
I
of
have
you.
my phone charger.
No, but you do have your phone in case you're missing anything else. That's it.
My phone.
Nice. Thank you. Officially off duty now. So
All
it was
right,
a pleasure.
thank you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
So the guy knows to many things because our brains are very good at doing some really cool tricks. If you look around the room, you create a picture of the room in your mind that feels like everything is in focus. But anytime you try reading something, you'll quickly notice, if you look around everything else, that the rest of the room is not in focus. Really, this is how we see the world. We're just moving our eyes around really quickly. So that tells us that multitasking is inefficient. It doesn't work. It doesn't even exist. Our attention is limited. We are capable of paying attention to one thing at a time. Come on in, join us. So the next thing I want you guys to know about attention is it's effortful. It actually wears us out when we pay attention to things. So this is a study on students' attention in class, and in the first 10 to 15 minutes, they reach their peak of attention. But quickly, it starts to decline because as we're paying attention, it starts taking more and more effort to keep our attention. So this is just a biological limit of our attention. We need rest in between paying attention, rest, pay attention, rest. So even another one that they did on presentations, people watching presentations like today, I'm going to have to do some added work to help you guys pay attention because I know that after about 15 minutes, you guys are going to have this serious drop in attention, right? And as I start getting to the conclusion, the exciting stuff, that maybe the things you guys came here to learn the most, your attention will start to go up. So I have to do extra work to keep that attention. And just like you have to do extra work to pay attention when you're in class. Okay, so this is a chart. I hope it's not too small for everyone to read, but I want you to quickly try to read through this list, and maybe you need to read through twice to see how it goes, and see try to not make any mistakes as you read through this list of words. Okay, so I think most of you guys should have been able to accomplish that. So we're going to try this one more time, and we're going to do the same thing. I want you to try to do it as fast as you can, not making any mistakes. So what happened the second time around? Did anyone feel like they were as fast reading it the second time around? Did anyone have to take pauses or make mistakes a little bit? And especially when we say these out loud. So I tested this. This is called the Stroop effect. So I tested this with about 1,000 students at my school when I was an undergraduate degree. And no one performed as well on the second list because, right, the words are in different colors than what their names. It's a distraction. We add in that little bit of distraction and suddenly your performance goes down. Typically, people would drop their performance by about 30 to 50% with the second list. So it's another really important thing to know about our attention, right? Distractions have a huge impact on our cognitive ability, our cognitive performance, how well we do. So things I want you guys to be remembering about attention, it's limited. One thing, that's all you get to pay attention to at any one time. All those other times when you think I'm so good at multitasking, all you're doing is really hopping your attention back and forth between multiple things, and it's very inefficient. It's also very effortful, right? We need breaks when we're focusing, and we're very prone to distraction. So now we're going to do a short memory test. That's the next stage of this. So for this test, you're going to see a list of words, and I want you to see if you can try to remember as many as possible. Okay, so normally I would have you guys write this down, but I don't have things for you guys to write with today. So I want you to think about who can tell me at least 7 words on that list? 7. Does anyone feel like they can? For viewers at home, go ahead and try to see if you can write down as many on the list as you can remember. So it's really challenging, right? So this is another problem. These are the words we saw on the list: airplane, cinema, pineapple, blizzard, grape, cola, oak, forest, nickel, kite, beetle, snow cone, football, watch, jacket. It's too big of a list. Our short-term memory doesn't have that big of a capacity, right? Our capacity is about 7. Give or take 2, but the average person's about 7 is how many they can hold in there. And because I overloaded you, pushed you past that 7, if I'd only given you 7, you might have been able to hold on to the whole list. But because I pushed you past it, now you were trying to juggle too many things and you probably started dropping more than, so you can't even remember 7. And this happens to our short-term memory all the time. So if I gave you this jumble of numbers and say, try to remember as many as you can, you'll probably be doing the same thing, right? You'll be stuck in the same situation. But what if I give you this? Would you be able to remember this? Yeah. So suddenly, when we organize information, right, into groups or chunks, our capacity is increased. So our capacity for our short-term memory, it's not limited to 7 particular pieces of information. It's 7 chunks of information. So you can make those chunks of information as big as possible as long as you can do it in some way that creates an idea that you can hold on to. So this idea of 1 through 5, 0 to 9, and then 7, 8, 8, it's pretty easy to hold on to as 3 separate chunks of information. And I could even give you a couple more chunks and you'd still be able to hold on to all those numbers, even though it's far beyond 7. So Our short-term capacity is limited to 7 ideas, but they can be chunked. Now, it does require maintenance. Like I told you guys before, short-term memory is limited to about 30 seconds. If you don't do something with it to encode that into long-term memory, it will disappear. So let's look at some of the psychology around long-term memory. Go ahead and do that test again. So for those of you at home, let's see if you can remember that list of words I showed you with the 15 words in it. How many of those can you remember? And I showed you guys here. Does anyone remember any of the words on that list? Come on, some of the younger guys know. You know some of the words. What are some of the words you remember?
Pineapple.
Which one?
Pineapple.
Pineapple, okay. Airplane. Snow cone. What was that?
Cinema.
Cinema, oh yeah, good. Oak. Beetle. Wow, good.
Cola.
Cola. Kite, good. So we got some in there. So, airplane, cinema, pineapple, beetle, snow cone, and we got cola in there. So what we tend to see is people tend to remember the first words in a list. I'm surprised we didn't get any, but I guess maybe it might be the order I've got it in is kind of a weird order. But we tend to remember the things that came first in the list the most, and then the things that come last in the list. And there's a reason for that. The ones that in the first of the list, we repeated those in our head the most, right? We were trying with that. And then as we went along, we couldn't keep juggling those with repeating those and do it with the rest of the list. So we tend to remember the things that come first very well and the things that were most recent. And this is, you know, I told you from rehearsal. So we'll watch a short clip on how Sheldon rehearses.
How do you memorize the special Sheldon monologues or complicated science terminology that you have to have?
During the week, I start, I probably have them on me. I do. I make
The
my
magic note
flashcards.
cards.
And like this is Act 1, Scene A. And then there's my first cue line. It's from Leonard. There's the L. It says, okay, see you later. And then on the back is my line. And I pace around my house and I do drill them like some sort of ballet dancer learning moves, largely because I don't understand a lot of what I'm talking about. And so I need the muscle memory to be in my mouth, at least, to be really ready to go, because if I do think about it, A, the right words will never occur to me, and B, the ones that do will just be wrong. I don't want to be joined to another object by an inclined plane wrapped helically around an axis.
In what way are you screwed?
Okay, so this is typically how most of us, especially when we're in our early years, think about how to study for tests at school, right? We rehearse it. We say it again and again. We try to get through there in repetition. But another way we can do it is by deep processing. So rehearsing is kind of the most basic one, right? Where we just remember the fact. But we can also understand what is meant by the fact, apply it, break it down, analyze it, and evaluate it, judge how good the idea is. So these are ways that we can more deeply process information, and it usually leads to stronger memories that last. So we also tend to forget information, right? Information decays over time. And we have a huge drop-off. Within a day, we've already lost 66% of the information. So by tomorrow, if I were to ask you about that list, you might remember 1 or 2 words, left on it, because the information just goes away. After 6 days, we've got about 25% left. So we've got to do something. If you're studying for school, you've got to think about, I've got to do something with this information so that I don't just forget it all. And we typically need to do something pretty quickly. So I want you to think about like the difference between learning things, the first things you've learned, the last things you've learned, the differences between rehearsal and deep processing, and the idea that that information is going to degrade over time. So now let's look at recall. Don't say it out loud. Say it in your mind. For you guys at home, you can say it out loud. But what's the name of this actor? He's a fairly famous actor. He's been in a lot of top movies. He was in Spider-Man. Oh, I kind of feel like it's on the tip of my tongue. I know it. It's somewhere there. But what if I ask you what's his name now? Do most of you guys know what his name is now is? Maybe some of our younger middle-aged students will know that this is James Franco, right? So when you're asked to recall information directly, I have to remember it. It can be hard. But if I see it there and I have to choose A, B, C, or D, I can recognize, ooh, that's easier. I know he's that one in the list because I know he's not the others, right? So why is recognition easier? It's because of priming. There are cues in the environment that lead us to that memory, right? The information's there in our brain somewhere, but we kind of lose the path. So when we are able to see the right answer and recognize it, it's easier for us to find the path back to that information and say, yeah, that was the right piece of information. So the idea I want you to take away from that is that isolated data is easier to lose, right? It's kind of like the needle in the haystack, right? But what if I connect that needle to a button? Okay, now it's a bit easier. And what if that button's connected to a shirt? Now I can easily find that needle in the haystack because it's attached to bigger ideas. So that's another thing I want you guys to think about, that the bigger the idea, the easier it is to recall, the easier it is for you to find. But when you have little isolated pieces of data, if I'm just trying to memorize the date for that history test, it is going to be really hard for me to recall that date when I'm in the exam. But if I build a whole story behind it, connect it to a larger idea of what the relevance of that story was and why that date matters in time, now suddenly that date's not so difficult to remember. Okay, the other one is our forgetting curve. When we looked at how our information falls off over time, we see something else happen. Whenever we remember a piece of information, when we recall it, our memory gets stronger. It's kind of like taking a path in a forest. The first time you take that path, right, it's kind of hard to find it again. But if you walk that path every day, suddenly it's a very easy to find path, right? It's easy to get back to that spot we want to go. The same thing happens with memory. The more times we remember, the better we learn. So for recall, I want you to remember the ideas that there's a difference between recognition and recall. Recognition's easy, recall's hard. Big ideas are easier to recall, and they're strengthened through use. So now that you have some basic understanding about how our psychology is affecting our learning, let's learn how to hack that psychology and actually learn better. Okay, so remember, these are our problems we're dealing with. Where attention's limited to one thing, it takes effort, and we're prone to distractions. So this is one of the best ideas that everyone should put into action this weekend. Go home, figure out your situation. Now, if you're like me and most of us, we don't have one area that we can only use for studying, right? We play games on the same computer that we use to do homework. So it's easy to get distracted when we're doing that. So to prepare your environment, you want to first make sure you've got everything you need, but you can set up certain things like, first, remove distractions. When you are studying, turn off your cell phone, right? Put it on silent at least, and put it in a desk drawer. But then have a lamp on your desk that you only use when you study. And have a notebook that you only take out when you're studying. That notebook does not sit on your desk when you are playing video games, when you're watching YouTube or TikTok or anything else. So whenever you're going to take a break, study break, you need to turn off your lamp, put your notebook away. Doing this primes you to whenever your lamp is on and your notebook is out, suddenly it's easier to pay attention for longer periods of time and to not be distracted. Because it's like the same thing as when you walk into a library or you walk into a classroom. You know what you're supposed to be doing, right? You're not tempted when you're in class, hopefully you're not tempted in class to be checking or TikTok or something else, because you've already primed yourself with what you do in a classroom. So do the same thing with your study environment at home. Prime yourself that when that lamp is on and when that notebook is out, I am only studying. So as soon as you take a break, turn it off. The other thing you should really do is study in intervals, right? We talked about that it takes effort to pay attention. And if you're trying to study for an hour at a time, and I think that's how most of us want to do it. We want to study for long periods of time, we're in study time. If you do that, you're going to have about 20 to 25 minutes of effective study, and then suddenly you're going to be down here. And the longer you study, you're going to stay low and very inefficient. So instead, study for 25 minutes, take a quick 5-minute break, set a timer on your phone, watch a YouTube video, do whatever. But remember, turn off that lamp, put your notebook away. I'm going to take my quick break. Then, when your timer's up, 5 minutes, lamp back on, notebook out. Let's go at it. Let's do another. If we're going to do an hour, I think this is a pretty good breakdown. 25 minutes is kind of the peak time where you got to hit that break. So if you're going to do just 1 hour, do 25, 15, 10, and have 2 breaks in between there. That will make it to where when you're studying, you're up here in this very high efficiency studying time. You will be able to recall more information, and your time will be more effectively used than if you're just trying to study straight for 60 minutes, because you're not going to remember what you did in this last half hour. So, short-term memory. Some of our limitations, right? We have this limited capacity, but it can be chunked, and it requires maintenance. Mnemonic devices are a really great way to chunk information. I don't know if you guys have ever had to memorize all the planets. So when I was a kid, we did this one. This was when Pluto was still a planet, right? My very eager mother just served us 9 pizzas. Do you guys know them? Who's going to help me out? Planets. Who knows it? Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and used to be Pluto. But if you're using the modern one where we don't count Pluto as a planet anymore, then you could just use my very eager mother just served us noodles. So using mnemonic devices like this is a really great tool whenever you have to remember like a pretty big piece of information, right? I've got to remember now 8 names. That can be a little bit challenging, but if I just remember this one sentence, now it's one chunk. It's one chunk that allows me access to that bigger memory. Another way to do it is to mind map, right? If you're doing stories, you can write down like the key concepts, the setting. You connect all your pieces of information and turn it into a big idea. Make it easier for you to recall these later. Another way, especially for older students, I really highly recommend using this trick. If you're in high school or above, make a knowledge tree. When you get your syllabus or you have your textbook, go through and make a map of all of the topics that you're going to be covering. And then any time that you're studying a topic, know which area you're studying in and how it relates to the bigger class that you're studying. So this helps you to link that new knowledge that you have to all of your old knowledge and understand where it fits in. That makes it much easier to access it when you're trying to find it later on in your memory. Okay, so some of our issues with long-term memory, right? There was a difference between rehearsal and deep processing. It is degrading over time. And we have some issues where sometimes the stuff in the middle is harder for us to remember because of primacy and recency effects. So when you're in your classroom, while taking notes, be thinking, be evaluating. Do I agree with this information? I think this is one of the things that really made studying very easy for me. I tend to be kind of a judgmental thinker. and constantly analyzing the information and evaluating it, doing these very high-level things, requires that you also apply the concepts to things. It requires that you understand what the facts means. And it will make remembering it very easy because you're kind of attaching that idea to a story. And stories are very big ideas for us. So this is one you should definitely put into place. Whenever you're in classroom, don't just say, okay, the teacher said this, so it must be true. Think for yourselves. Be independent thinkers. Why does this make sense? Does it make sense? Do I agree with this? Right? Evaluate it for yourself. And like we said, the study order matters. So you'll tend to remember the things that came earlier and the things that came later. So if you're doing a test and it's going to be over what you guys have learned for the last 8 weeks, you should probably spend a little bit of extra time on those like weeks 3, 4, 5 in the middle where we tend to have the most forgetting. Right? It's usually the hardest for us to do. So you can review the middle more or start and end with the hard things. Right? Don't start and end with the things that you're good at and do the hard things in the middle. Make sure that if there's some things you don't really understand, set your hour aside and spend the first 25 minutes focusing on the hard stuff. Okay, so disrupting our forgetting curve. We talked about this, that whenever you remember something, it's going to help you. So you see this effect that's happening here too. The curve is also flattening the more times you remember. So we tend to see that it flattens out at a much higher area the more times we have recalled it. That means we cannot cram. If you're doing the thing where I'm gonna create a 12-hour study session the weekend before the test, you will not have broken up this forgetting curve. So even if you're able to do it for the test, you will have lost all the information when the class is over. Well, maybe not all of it, but probably 80% of it. And that's not an effective use of your time. If you're going and doing all this work in school just so that you can get the score on the test and not have any of the information, oh my goodness, it's such a terrible waste of time. You want the information, so avoid cramming. Okay, so for our recall, we remember that recognition was much easier and recall is much harder. And it's strengthened through use. So the same thing with this forgetting curve, improve your recall. I think most people, when they want to study, they go back and they review their notes. Which type of remembering is that? When you review your notes, that's recognition. Ah, I see that, I remember that. That's recognition, that's the easy part. In order to improve your recall, use things like flashcards or quiz yourself so that you actually have to practice your recall. If you practice your recall, it will be very easy for you to remember it in the test. But if you're just doing your studying by reviewing your notes or reviewing the information in the book, you are only practicing recognition. So flashcards, one of the old techniques, still one of the best techniques. And it's very easy to use flashcards for 15 minutes a day so that you do on day 1, on day 2, on day 3. So if you're thinking, I'm gonna learn this today and I'll study it next week, that's too late, right? It's better for you to study in short intervals, just 15 minutes daily, rather than waiting until the weekend and then studying for 2 hours for the same subject. Okay, so the hacks that we've got, right? You really need to prime your study area. You should break up your study into intervals, right? Don't force yourself to try to stay focused for longer than 25 minutes. It's better for you to take a short break and come back at it. Chunk information, as much as you can, chunk information using mnemonic devices, creating mind maps, or doing knowledge trees. Evaluate while you're in class learning. Be asking questions about the material you are learning. Actively play with that information, and it will be much easier to remember later. Study frequently. More frequent studying, short term, right? You just need 15 minutes of frequent study to really get that information deeply embedded in your mind. And alternate your study order, right? You remember that primacy recency thing. And test your recall using things like note cards. And the last one, get enough sleep. When we don't have enough sleep, every one of these cognitive functions is impaired. It is much more difficult and much more effortful to pay attention when you don't have enough sleep. It is extremely hard to recall information when you don't get enough sleep. And long-term memories require sleep to make. Our information really gets encoded from short-term memory into long-term memory while we sleep. So if you haven't got enough sleep, you will likely have lost a lot of that memory, right? You won't successfully transfer it to your long-term memory. Okay, so next up, we're gonna bring up Pakwhan, who's gonna tell us some of her pro tips on note-taking and time management, and a little bit about her experience with Point Avenue. Okay.
Okay.
Welcome, Pakwhan.
Hi everyone สวัสดีค่ะก็ชื่อผักหวานนะคะในชวดีกาญจนโคสิทธิ์ค่ะ Okay, so yeah, I'll talk. So first ก็คือจะแนะนำตัวก่อนว่ามาจากไหนเป็นใครมาจากไหนแล้วก็จะพูดถึงเทคนิคเกี่ยวกับการเรียนต่างๆค่ะแล้วก็วิธีการที่หนูใช้ในการจัดการชีวิตตัวเองค่ะก็ about me Okay, so here I'm ผักหวานนะคะก็เพิ่งเรียนจบจากโรงเรียนกำเนิดวิทยาค่ะโรงเรียนกำเนิดวิทยาเป็นโรงเรียนที่ว่าแบบโรงเรียนเกี่ยวกับสเต็มที่ว่าอยู่แถวๆระยองประมาณนี้ค่ะก็เพิ่งเรียนจบมาใหม่ๆเลยแล้วก็บ้านเกิดก็อยู่ที่สงขลาค่ะwhat I like is like drawing, deep talking or jogging or about like sharing what I know and I'm interested in engineering, education and psychology. So ก็อันนี้ก็จะเป็นเกี่ยวกับthe journey with Point Avenue ก็โดยส่วนตัวผักหวานก็เข้ามา mentorship ก็จอยที่นี่ตั้งแต่ประมาณตอนจบม.4 ค่ะจบม.4 ก็ได้เข้ามาแล้วก็มีเมนเทอร์เป็นตอนนั้นเป็นยูกิค่ะก็เขาก็ช่วยตั้งแต่ตอนแรกเลยสมัยนั้นรู้สึกว่าเป็นคนที่ไม่ได้มั่นใจขนาดนั้นแล้วก็กึ่งว่าเรียนวิชาเคมีอย่างเดียวประมาณนี้ก็ไม่ได้มั่นใจขนาดนั้นว่าจะเริ่มกิจกรรมต่างๆยังไงจะใช้ชีวิตยังไงในโรงเรียนดีก็ไปเรื่อยๆก็ยูกิก็ช่วยทำให้หนูได้แบบค้นหาตัวตนได้รู้จักตัวเองมากขึ้นว่าตัวเองจะเป็นคนยังไงจะกล้าเข้าสังคมยังไงแล้วก็จะ initiate เริ่มต้นกิจกรรมต่างๆยังไงได้บ้างในแง่ของกิจกรรมก็พอสนใจอะไรปุ๊บก็เขาก็ไปคุยกับเมนเทอร์ก็ตอนนั้นก็เป็นยูกิก็เขาก็บอกว่านั่นแหละเราจะ manage กิจกรรมได้ยังไงแล้วก็ให้คำแนะนำต่างๆมาได้ดีเลยค่ะแล้วก็สุดท้ายก็คือเกี่ยวกับuniversity application process ก็คือทางยูกิก็จะช่วยในเรื่องของว่าเราจะสมัครมหาลัยยังไงช่วยไกด์ตั้งแต่ตอนแรกช่วยในแง่ของ brainstorm เกี่ยวกับ personal statement และ essay อื่นๆว่าเราจะเขียนยังไงดีให้ดึงความเป็นตัวตนของเราออกมาให้มหาลัยเห็นได้ชัดและเข้าใจได้ดีมากที่สุดค่ะโอเค yeah so อันนี้ก็จะเป็นแบบประวัติคร่าวๆเป็น activities ที่เคยทำนะคะก็ส่วนตัวเป็นคนที่ใช้เวลาอยู่กับวิชาเคมีค่อนข้างเยอะค่ะก็เคยไปแข่ง International Chemistry Olympiad เป็นเคมีโอลิมปิกมาแล้วก็มีเป็นทีมกัปตันของ International Chemistry Tournament แล้วก็รวมถึงเคยทำโปรเจกต์ research เกี่ยวกับเคมีมาด้วยค่ะก็ทำโปรเจกต์แล้วก็ publish เรียบร้อยแล้วค่ะตัว paper อีกความสนใจหนึ่งก็คือเกี่ยวกับeducation ค่ะก็คือเกี่ยวกับด้านการศึกษาการพัฒนาการศึกษาในประเทศไทยค่ะก็อันนี้ก็เป็นผักหวานก็เคยเป็น founder ก็คือคนก่อตั้งชุมนุมหนึ่งขึ้นมาที่โรงเรียนชื่อ K-Wisdom Education is for all ก็เดี๋ยวอธิบายเพิ่มทีหลังนะคะแล้วก็เคยเป็นประธานของชุมนุม Khan Academy for Thai ที่แปล subtitle ของ Khan Academy จากภาษาอังกฤษเป็นภาษาไทยให้กับคนไทยได้ชมค่ะแล้วก็อีกอันนึงก็คือเคยมีประสบการณ์สอนที่โรงเรียนข้างเคียงใกล้ๆโรงเรียนใกล้ๆกำเนิดวิทย์ค่ะก็โอเคอันนี้ก็เป็นแบบภาพรวมกิจกรรมเนอะก็ ICHO ตอนนั้นจริงๆต้องไปแข่งที่โอซาก้าแต่ว่าก็ช่วงนั้นมันก็เป็นช่วงโควิดพอดีก็เลยแข่งออนไลน์ไปที่โรงเรียนเลยอีกอันนึงอันนี้ก็คือโชคดีหน่อยได้ไปออนไซต์ตอนปีที่แล้วเลยค่ะก็คือ International Chemistry Tournament มันเป็นกิจกรรมที่ให้คนดีเบตเกี่ยวกับตัวมีโจทย์เคมีมาให้แล้วก็ให้เราไปถกกับเพื่อนในทีมแล้วก็เอาคนไปพรีเซนต์แล้วก็ ไปถกกันกับเพื่อนต่างทีมว่าตัวโจทย์นี้เราทำโซลูชันมามีข้อดีข้อเสียยังไงบ้างก็ภาพรวมก็เป็นประสบการณ์นำทีมแล้วก็ได้ไปเที่ยวที่บูดาเปสต์ที่ฮังการีค่ะก็เป็นประสบการณ์ที่ดีมากๆเลยค่ะอีกอันนึงที่อยากจะนำเสนอก็คือเป็นตัวคลับที่หนูสร้างขึ้นมาที่โรงเรียนก็มีสมาชิกคลับประมาณ60คนมันตัวคลับก็คือ K-Wisdom ก็สิ่งที่ทำก็คือหนูกับเพื่อนก็เป็นคนนำให้เพื่อนๆคนอื่นไปสอนเป็นออกคลิปสอนต่างๆทำตั้งแต่ตัดต่อวิดีโอจนถึงแบบกราฟิกจนถึงได้คลิปออกมาเป็น1คลิปแล้วก็เอาโพสต์ลงช่อง YouTube แล้วก็มีการทำเป็น IG แล้วก็ทำลง Facebook ด้วยค่ะก็อันนี้ก็เป็นภาพรวมกิจกรรมต่างๆที่แบบหนูเคยทำตามนอกห้องเรียนตอนอยู่ที่โรงเรียนก็เลยจะเอามาดูว่าเมื่อมีกิจกรรมแบบนี้แล้วในห้องเรียนนั้นหนูเรียนยังไงบ้างก็ How do I study ก็คือวิธีการเรียนนะคะอันดับแรกก็จะเล่าเกี่ยวกับการ take notes ค่ะก็เวลาเรียนในห้องก็คือจะ take notes in class เลยจะจดไปเลยในระหว่างตอนที่เรียนในห้องค่ะประโยชน์ของการทำแบบนี้ก็คือ1มันค่อนข้างประหยัดเวลาเราไม่จำเป็นจะต้องมา take notes like after study ก็คือเราไม่ต้องมา take notes ตอนเย็นแล้วแต่ว่าเราก็จดไปเลยพอครูสอนแล้วก็ดูจากสไลด์ของครูแล้วก็สรุปทำความเข้าใจกับมันแล้วก็จดไปในคาบเลยค่ะอีกอันนึงก็คือ it makes you more focused in class ก็คือทำให้สามารถจดจ่อกับตัวเนื้อหาที่เรียนที่โรงเรียนได้มากขึ้นด้วยเพราะว่าถ้าเกิดว่าเราไม่ take notes ส่วนใหญ่สิ่งที่เราทำก็คือฟังครูไปเรื่อยๆแล้วก็ข้อมูลก็แบบเข้าหูซ้ายแล้วก็ทะลุหูขวาแล้วเราก็จะจำอะไรไม่ได้เลยว่าครูสอนอะไรไปบ้างอันนี้เชื่อว่าคือในคาบที่ว่าไม่ได้ take notes ก็คือเป็นแบบนี้เหมือนกันก็เลยคิดว่าไหนๆก็ครูก็พูดแล้วเราก็จดสรุปไปด้วยเลยดีกว่าทีเดียวเลยอีกอันนึงก็คือ it's in your own words so it is easier to understand than the slides ก็คือเวลาที่ว่าเรา take notes เราเขียนลงไปด้วยความเข้าใจของเราเองก็คือเราคิดวิเคราะห์เราสังเคราะห์ออกมาแล้วว่านั่นแหละเราจะจดอะไรเราเข้าใจตรงไหนไม่เข้าใจตรงไหนบ้างแล้วถ้าไม่เข้าใจเราก็แบบวงสีอื่นๆเอาไว้ก็จะทำให้เรารู้ว่านั่นแหละค่ะเราเข้าใจหรือไม่เข้าใจยังไงแล้วก็ทำให้เราเข้าใจเนื้อหาได้มากขึ้นด้วยค่ะ Okay so here's like tips on real time note taking in class ก็วิธีการ take notes นะคะก็อันดับแรกก็คือเราต้องทำให้มัน easier to understand than the slides ก็คือตัวโน้ตของเรามันควรจะเข้าใจง่ายกว่าสไลด์หรือว่าตัว textbook ที่ว่าเราเอาไว้ใช้อ่านหลักการที่เอาไว้ใช้เทคนะคะก็คืออันแรกจะใช้สีง่ายๆเลยค่ะส่วนตัวผักหวานก็คือใช้แบบ3สีถ้าเกิดว่าถ้าเป็นกระดาษสีขาวก็จะเขียนด้วยสีน้ำเงินเป็นหลักน้ำเงินหรือดำแล้วก็นั่นแหละแล้วก็ใช้สีแดงเป็นตัวเน้นแล้วก็อีกสีนึงก็คือเป็นจะเน้นหรือจะวงอะไรก็แล้วแต่แล้วก็ถ้าเกิดว่าใช้พื้นหลังสีดำก็จะเป็นตัวสีอ่อนเป็นตัวหลักเลยค่ะที่เอาไว้ใช้เขียนก็คือ use one main color and use some highlights and after you take notes you can mark on important parts ในส่วนที่สำคัญก็เราก็จะทำการ mark หรือว่าทำการ highlight ด้วยสีอื่นค่ะตรงส่วนนี้ก็ยกตัวอย่างเราก็จะใช้ไฮไลท์สีต่างๆหรือว่าตัว color ไฮไลท์สีที่แตกต่างกันสำหรับการมาร์กที่แตกต่างอย่างเช่นถ้าเรามีคำถามเราก็อาจจะมาร์กด้วยสีนึงถ้าตรงนี้ครูเน้นจริงๆเราก็อาจจะมาร์กด้วยอีกสีนึงหรือว่าอาจจะใส่เป็นดอกจันสีแดงแบบนี้ก็ได้ค่ะแล้วก็อันสุดท้ายก็คือuse different pen size for like topic or subtopic ก็คือเราจะใช้ปากกาที่ขนาดแตกต่างกันให้เห็นได้ชัดเจนค่ะว่าตรงไหนเป็นหัวข้อหรือตรงไหนไม่ใช่หัวข้อก็อันนี้จริงๆก็คือเป็นโน้ตที่จดตรงระหว่างเรียนเลยค่ะวิธีนี้ก็คือเป็นวิธีแบบ mind map ก็ by using mind mapping you can see the content connection quite easily so it is quite effective to learn with mind mapping okay so next part is about exam preparation ก็อันนี้ก็จะเป็นวิธีการเรียนในตอนช่วงก่อนสอบว่าเตรียมตัวสอบยังไงอันแรกก็คือ summarizing from the slides to reduce the number of pages to read ปกติอะค่ะเวลาที่ครูให้สไลด์มาเคยเจอว่าเรียน1คาบให้มาประมาณ100สไลด์พอเจอแบบนี้ปุ๊บเราก็นั่นแหละเราจะเริ่มอ่านยังไงดีหลายคนก็คือขี้เกียจอ่านแล้วก็เทแต่ก็คือถ้ายังมีเวลาอยู่ก็แนะนำให้จดสรุปมันออกมาค่ะเอาประเด็นสำคัญออกมาก่อนเอาหัวข้อก่อน take out the topics first from the slides and then after that you can summarize from it ก็วิธีการทำอันนี้วิธีการจดโน้ตอันนี้เป็นอีกวิธีหนึ่งที่เคยลองใช้ก็คือเป็น Cornell note taking style สิ่งที่ทำก็คือจะมีคอลัมน์หนึ่งเป็นส่วนของหัวข้อแล้วก็อีกคอลัมน์หนึ่งก็จะเป็นส่วนของเนื้อหาแล้วก็จริงๆจะต้องมีเป็นส่วน summarize part ด้วยว่าสรุปเนื้อหาของหน้านั้นว่ามันมีอะไรบ้างก็ถ้าเกิดว่าใช้วิธีนี้เขียนจะทำให้เห็นพวกตัวคีย์เวิร์ดหรือว่าตัวท็อปิกในการเรียนค่อนข้างชัดเจนนะคะแล้วก็วิธีการ take notes อันอื่นก็คือทำให้อ่านวิธีการ take notes ให้อ่านง่ายขึ้นก็คือเราจะสามารถพิมพ์ใช้วิธีการพิมพ์แทนการเขียนได้ถ้าเกิดว่าเรารู้สึกว่าเราไม่ได้ลายมือสวยขนาดนั้นบางทีการพิมพ์ก็ทำให้มันอ่านง่ายกว่าแล้วก็โน้ตเราดูดีกว่าแล้วก็ดูสะดวกตาที่จะอ่านมากกว่าก็ได้ค่ะอีกอันนึงก็คือ leave some spaces ก็คือเราใช้เป็นดิจิตอลนะเราก็ไม่ต้องกลัวเรื่องของแบบเราจะใช้กระดาษหมดหรือเปล่าจะใช้เปลืองหรือเปล่าเพราะว่ากระดาษมันก็มีไม่จำกัดอยู่แล้วก็ให้เว้นระยะเว้นบรรทัดบ้างเพื่อให้เราดูอ่านแล้วมันสบายตาแล้วก็จะจำข้อมูลได้ง่ายขึ้นค่ะOkay and after you do the notes don't forget to revise อันนี้ก็คือเป็นเทคนิคก็คือที่เอาไว้ใช้อ่านตอนช่วงก่อนสอบเลยค่ะก็เอาตัวโน้ตของเรามาทำไฟล์ copy เอาไว้ทำไฟล์ copy เสร็จเราลบเนื้อหาส่วนที่เราต้องการจะจำแล้วก็ทำการ recall ตัวเนื้อหานั้นโดยที่ว่าเราจะเขียนทับลงไปเลยว่าเนื้อหาส่วนนั้นมันคืออะไรแล้วก็ถ้าเรายังจำไม่ได้แล้วก็ลองเปิดเช็คเฉลยแล้วถ้าเรายังจำไม่ได้ก็วงสีแดงเอาไว้แล้วก็หลังจากนั้นก็เอามาทบทวนอีกทีนึงก็อาจจะลองทำซ้ำแบบนี้อีกรอบก็ได้ค่ะถ้ามีเวลาก็อันนี้เป็นวิธีที่ทำให้จำแล้วก็จำเนื้อหาอะไรแบบนี้ได้ค่ะ Okay so about best note taking technique เขียนยังไงจดโน้ตยังไงให้ดีที่สุดโดยส่วนตัวมองว่าfor me there's no best technique ก็คือมันไม่ได้มีเทคนิคที่ตายตัวหรือว่าคิดว่าเราควรจะเขียนโน้ตจดสรุปยังไงแต่จริงๆแล้วก็หลักการที่ใช้หลักๆก็คืออ่านแล้วมันสบายตาอ่านแล้วมันอ่านง่ายอีกอันนึงก็คือสามารถเชื่อมโยงแล้วก็ไปสู่ point ที่ว่าเราจะอยากจะเรียนไปสู่เนื้อหาอ่านแล้วก็รู้ว่าเนื้อหาส่วนนี้มันอยู่ตรงไหนได้ง่ายประมาณนี้ก็คือไปหาเนื้อหาที่เราอยากจะเรียนได้ง่ายค่ะแล้วก็ตัวโน้ตก็ควรที่จะ connect ideas ได้ค่ะก็คือสามารถที่จะเชื่อมเนื้อหาต่างๆส่วนที่เราไม่ค่อยเข้าใจให้มันเป็นภาพเดียวกันภาพใหญ่ๆได้ค่ะก็อันนี้เป็นประโยชน์ของการแบบจดโน้ตออกมาให้เราเห็นภาพค่ะ Okay so next it's about like managing my study life ก็คือระหว่างที่ว่าเราเรียนกับระหว่างที่เรากำลังทำกิจกรรมต่างๆนั้นเราควรจะจัดการกับเวลายังไงอันนี้ก็เป็นตัวพวกกิจกรรมที่เคยทำค่ะก็คือเรามีกิจกรรมทั้งหลายเต็มเทอมเต็ม2เทอมแล้วเราเอาเวลาที่ไหนไปเตรียมอย่างเช่นเตรียมสอบ SAT สอบพวก TOEFL ต่างๆซึ่งคำตอบก็คือโดยส่วนตัวจะใช้เวลาแบบระหว่าง semester breaks ค่ะก็คือจะบอกว่า semester breaks are most valuable time ช่วงเวลาระหว่างที่ว่าปิดภาคเรียนในตอนช่วงที่เราว่างๆนั้นเราควรถ้าเกิดว่าเราไม่ได้แพลนอะไรเลยตรงว่างๆตรงนั้นมันก็จะหายวับไปเลยว่าเราก็จะไม่ได้ทำอะไรเลยตลอดช่วงเวลานั้นดังนั้นสิ่งที่ทำก็คือพอช่วงไหนที่ยุ่งๆก็พอปิดเทอมปุ๊บเราก็จะแพลนว่าตัวเบรกตอนช่วงนี้เราจะทำอะไรบ้างเราจะเรียนอะไรไหมหรือว่าเราอยากพัฒนาสกิลด้านไหนเราก็จะแพลนมันเอาไว้ให้เนิ่นๆแล้วก็เติมข้อมูลเติมตารางชีวิตลงไปตามแผนนั้นๆค่ะอีกอันนึงอีกทิปนึงก็คือ more tasks means that you have to plan more carefully ก็อันนี้เป็นยกตัวอย่าง case study ตอนที่เตรียม SAT ค่ะช่วงนั้นเป็นช่วงที่ยุ่งมากๆเลยที่โรงเรียนเป็นช่วงสอบช่วงธันวาเสร็จแล้วอยากจะสอบอีกช่วงนึงคือช่วงมีนาคมแล้วตอนระหว่างธันวากับมีนาก็คือกิจกรรมที่โรงเรียนแบบอัดเต็มไปหมดเลยสิ่งที่ทำก็เลยเริ่มจากการเตรียม SAT วิธีการเตรียมก็กำหนดเลยว่าเราต้องการจะเตรียมโดยใช้เวลาชั่วโมงจำนวนกี่ชั่วโมงอยากเตรียมกี่ชั่วโมงเรามีเวลาให้มันได้กี่ชั่วโมงวันไหนเราว่างบ้างไม่ว่างบ้างแล้วก็ใส่อีเวนต์ลงไปในปฏิทินให้เต็มก่อนแล้วก็ดูว่าตรงวันไหนเราสามารถเติมส่วนที่เป็นการเป็น SAT preparation เข้าไปได้แล้วก็เติมมันลงไปตรงนั้นนะคะอันนี้ก็เป็นเทคนิคหนึ่งในการที่ว่าจะจัดแพลนในช่วงยุ่งๆว่าจะจัดมันได้ยังไงโอเคก็อันนี้ก็เป็นโค้ดสุดท้ายแล้วก็อยากจะฝากบอกว่า once you open your mind you will see the joy in learning ก็คือ ถ้าเกิดว่าเราเรียนถ้าเกิดว่าเราเปิดใจที่จะเรียนรู้อะไรสักอย่างก็บางครั้งเราก็จะเห็นความสุขเราก็จะมีความสุขกับการเรียนสิ่งนั้นขึ้นมาได้เองค่ะก็โอเคก็จบลงแล้วนะคะของเซสชั่นผักหวานก็ถ้าใครมีคำถามสงสัยอะไรก็แอดมาได้อันนี้เป็น Studygram ค่ะก็เป็นที่ลงเกี่ยวกับพวกเป็น Instagram for study tips ก็จะลงเกี่ยวกับว่าเรียนยังไงบ้างแต่ละวันใช้ชีวิตยังไงก็นิดๆหน่อยๆก็แอดกันมาได้นะคะก็ขอบคุณค่ะ thank you for listening ค่ะ
Thank you so much, Pakwhan.
thank you
Okay. Awesome. It was great hearing about how she's been able to apply so much of what we've helped her with. And I don't know, Pakwhan, did you mention any of the schools that you've been accepted to recently?
Not yet.
Okay. So why don't you quickly, here, you can,
Whoops.
that's okay. Go
Right
ahead.
now, for the schools, Caltech, yeah, I got into Caltech. Wait, what else? Harvard, yeah, Cambridge, Harvard, UCLA, and Manchester, and yeah, don't
And
know.
still a lot
remember.
more coming. So yeah, she's been extremely successful. So thank you for sharing your experience with us. Next, we're going to bring up Natcha, who's going to tell us a little about her experience with doing boarding prep and applying to boarding schools. And then I'm going to give you my last tip on speed reading. So come on, Natcha. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Natcha.
He wants you on this side.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead.
Hi, my name is Natcha. I'm 14 years old. I currently attend International School Bangkok. And as you can see, I do a lot of different things. I play 4 sports. I do theater, music, and I also have a community service of my own. And of course, as you all know, I also do my TV show, yeah? And my academic interests, I'm actually interested in like math and sciences and stuff, but I also like my other subjects, so that was really hard. That was a hard question to answer. So the schools I got into for boarding high schools, last year I got into Milton Academy, and this year I got into Groton School and St. Paul.
Wow, really awesome. Great job. Okay, so when we talked yesterday and I asked you about like some of the big ideas you had, so we talked about time management, breaking up your tasks or your essays into different pieces, and then how mindset matters. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you manage your time to be able to accomplish?
Since I do a lot of activities, I think time management is super important, even though if you don't do, I guess, as much as what I just listed out. But it's still super important that you manage your time and do it well as well. Because I know a lot of people have procrastination issues, because I also have procrastination issues. But to manage your time and separate like different chunks of your time designated specifically for each activity, I feel like is very important, because then that kind of prevents you from procrastinating and doing things that I guess you feel guilty of doing, but you still do it anyways. I think setting timers for yourself, like as Jay said before, breaking up your studying into chunks and I guess focusing at small chunks at a time really helps with your memory. And I think not just memorizing what you're studying for, but also understanding why you're studying and what you're studying for and what you're trying to achieve when you're studying, right? So yeah, breaking up tasks. And then since, boarding school applications, I had to balance that out with my academics as well at school. I had to balance times to study for, the test preps and stuff, write my essays as well as study for school work. And even though that was a really tough time to get through, I think I just pushed through it and had a mindset that said, as long as you try your best, you can do it. And that's when I thought that, maybe mindset really does matter. Because if I had told myself, maybe I can't do this, like, what if I didn't study enough? That would have been, I guess, like a step back for myself. And thinking like that doesn't push myself forward. So to have a positive mindset and being open-minded to, I think, what you can do and what you can achieve really helps with, your time management and putting in the effort to be able to reach those goals that you've set for yourself. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So I know you've done quite a few things with us. So you shared with us some of the pictures from your summer leader camp and actually the winter's leader camp also. I see the Merry Christmas sign in there. So tell us a little bit about your experience with the camp.
I think Point Avenue really helped me with not only boarding school applications for last year, but also helped build my own character and this mindset that I have today. From these camps, I learned a lot of leadership skills, time management, and also I think to have responsibility for every single thing you do, to give effort, to give maximum effort as a Point Av ethos, and I think just to live your life to the fullest as you can, right? So here are some pictures from camp. They're more of like fun pictures, but I think the camp really taught me to become independent, manage myself, and also help others along the way. Oh, well, there's some more pictures. Yeah, so as you can see in the first picture, that was running. My first camp I went to, we actually had to run 21 kilometers. So that was such a challenge for me as a 10-year-old. And when you have that mindset where you can push through anything and that you can accomplish such big things, even as, I guess, a small child, right? As you build your mindset like that, I think it makes us believe that you can do anything if you really put yourself into it and put in effort. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna show you guys one last awesome tip. Speed reading. So I told you guys I went to Harvard and I was also doing classes at MIT. And I was doing a lot of classes because it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So I wanted to take as many classes as possible. So I was taking about 166% load the entire time, which is crazy. And so I had about 300 pages per day that were assigned to me for reading. So I had to get through a lot of books, a lot of text. And most of the students that I knew would just not read stuff or try to find cliff notes because they just couldn't. But I knew there had to be a way. And so I thought, okay, you know, what if I've got to walk to school and back, and that's about a 15-minute walk. What if I could get like a text to audio, you know, and then I could take advantage of some of that time. And, you know, when I'm eating dinner and I'm thinking of like, how can I maximize every minute of my day to where I can get through this reading? And I stumbled across a really amazing tool. So Speechify, which is a really great text-to-speech app. Now, there are many different text-to-speech tools out there. I know Google has one now too that they just released. I personally like this one, but you know what? I don't have any affiliation. Whichever one you'd like to use probably works good. But there is a specific feature that they have that's auto speed ramping, which means that it can start off at 200 words per minute and slowly get faster, allowing you to adapt to the faster speed. The trick to it though, now here's the real hack. You need to follow along visually. So the idea that I had initially with just, you know, I'm gonna turn this text into audio and listen to it, it worked for some things that were kind of story-based, like that works. But if you're reading like textbook or, you know, stuff that's information heavy, it does not work well. But if you take in the information visually and auditorily, right? Now you've got two inputs. Your brain actually takes that in as like double information. So you're able to go faster while taking in this double information and still be able to comprehend what you are reading. This is an amazing hack that I discovered out of pure necessity. But you do need to take notes at the chapter ends, right? You're not just like everything else, you know, short-term memory is limited. You gotta do that extra work to make sure you can make it stick. So I'm gonna show you a short video of this. Instead of doing the speed ramping, which kind of slowly ramps up, I kind of just changed the speeds at a few times. And they have some really cool voices, so I picked Obama.
Cara took a seat at the table. Across from her sat her college counselor, a red-headed woman, pregnant, and in her late 20s. Cara thought she saw concern. After the obligatory small talk, the counselor began the session. So, how are your grades going to be this semester? She asked. Not as good as I hoped, probably some BS, Cara answered. The counselor glanced down at the list of schools where Cara wanted to apply as a free con for the umpteenth time that she had read it right. Stanford has a 10% acceptance rate. Do you know what that means? She asked. That 1 out of 10 get in, Cara ventured. It means that 9 get rejected, the counselor replied, trying to keep her voice even and reassuring. She paused for a moment, then asked Cara, do you think that you're better than those 9 other people? Cara began to stammer a response. Cara, the counselor said pleadingly, Stanford doesn't take students with BS. She pulled a sheet from the folder. You're on the cross-country team, which is good, but you're not the president of any clubs. And with these mediocre grades, you're not going to get into your reach schools. You're just not. The people who apply to these schools have done amazing things. Though it was left unsaid, Cara knew exactly the type of amazing student her counselor meant to students like Elizabeth, who was Cara's best friend and one of the high school's most impressive.
All right, we're about to get fast. Going to 420.
Seniors. Elizabeth was a master of the college admissions game, someone Cara later described to me as the poster child for students who do lots of uninteresting things. Elizabeth was president of the Key Club, played piano and varsity tennis, competed in math competitions, and belonged to what Cara described as lots of boring clubs that I would never join. When it came to grades, nothing short of straight as would satisfy Elizabeth. She was maniacal about gaming courses, the attributes that steered her. Like many students at her high school, she sued. By contrast, Cara, much to the horror of her counselor, had only taken 3 advanced placement courses. Keep in mind that her school had practically coordinated a student who had broken the state record for the most APs taken by a friend.
Okay, I'm going to get pretty fast here. I think 450. 480, 490, okay.
And Elizabeth had dropped the course because she got B, which increased the risk of her missing a full for her. She then pleaded with Cara to drop a linear algebra course that was giving her trouble. Take AP stats instead, she said. All you have to do is a crapload of homework that's 40% of the grade. If you do it all, they give you an A. Cara ignored this advice. She liked linear algebra. Elizabeth, on the other hand, didn't like much at all about high school. As Cara recalls, Elizabeth was working all the time. She had no social life. She was just so freaking diligent. She was also, as you might imagine, stressed, built often upset or anxious. But this is the approach that most students at elite high school swore by. It's also the approach followed by tens of thousands of other talented but overworked students across the country. It persists for one simple reason. If you're not an amazing athlete or a genius, and if your parents aren't capable of donating a new library to Harvard, demonstrating time-consuming commitment to lots of things has been deemed the only reliable way to maximize your admissions chances. It's a brutal game, and it's no fun to play, but at least the rules are clear. Then along came Cara. Spooked by the grim encounter with a college counselor, a meeting that concluded with the counselor pulling out the applications for the less competitive California public universities. Cara scraped together enough money to apply to 21. Her dad refused to pay the many application fees. I was freaked out that I wasn't going to get anywhere, she recalls. But here's the thing, Cara did get in. In fact, she got into 20 of the 21 schools she applied to, including MIT, Caltech, Columbia, Cornell, Berkeley, Johns Hopkins, and of course Stanford, proving to the surprise of her counselor that those schools do occasionally accept students with BS. Cara's long string of acceptances surprised her classmates because she refused to play the standard admissions game. Cara had the lowest GPA of any student from her school who had ever been accepted into MIT, where she now attends. She took a reasonable course load and avoided a crushing extracurricular schedule. Unlike most of her competitive peers, Cara actually enjoyed high school. I was perceived as the relaxed kid in my school, she told me with sheep chagrin. It was as if she were admitting crime. As you might imagine, Cara's success proved disruptive. The entire motivation, the raison d'etre of the brutal schedules of students like Elizabeth is their unshakable con. Cara shattered this con, and in doing so she provided a glimmer of hope for stressed students everywhere it might be possible to stand out without burning out. Meet the relaxed.
Okay, I'm going to jump it up to, I think it was
Cara's
580.
part of the well-known subculture students that are called the relaxed superstars. These are students who live relaxed, happy high school lives yet still breeze into the reach schools. Like Cara, they challenge a lot what we thought was true about the college admissions process. Most relaxed superstars pay little attention to college admissions until application deadlines loom. The topic doesn't dominate their lives the way it does for so many of their peers. They dismiss the belief that you should do instead. They build reasonable schedules that provide challenge, but still leave plenty of free time. They have 4 crowded lists of extracurricular activities. Instead, they focus on a small number of genuinely interesting pursuits. Perhaps the most striking trait of these students is their happiness. Spending time with them, I've been astonished by how much they seem to enjoy their lives. They reject the idea that happiness must be deferred until after you get accepted into college, and they prove that living relaxed and engaging life can actually make you more successful in the admission.
Okay, so yeah, when it got to the high speed, right, it sounds like just a blur of words. And you guys didn't have like the 30 minutes of time of it slowly ramping up to get you up to speed. But you could see that like even if you were doing it at 350 words per minute, that's still much faster than most of us read around 200 words per minute. Still much, much faster. And it was pretty easy to follow along at that rate. And especially if you're following along visually. So it would help things be more sticky, getting 2 input points. But I will say one of the other things, especially if you use it for textbook type of information, I don't know if you guys remember, parents, what it's like reading textbooks, but it is very, very mind-numbingly boring. It is terrible reading textbooks, right? It takes a lot of effort and energy, and you kind of have to force yourself to keep going. One of the really cool tools, like even if you were just going at a very slow, normal pace, it helps take away that effort that you have to put in to continue to read. That was actually one of the biggest advantages I found with doing textbooks, is that it suddenly felt effortless because I'm following along. Rather than having to push myself, I'm kind of being pulled along. And that was just a huge advantage because then I kind of freed up some of that energy, that mental energy for paying attention, rather than having to put so much energy into just continuing to read. So really, this is one of the best tools that helped me be very successful in university. I think that anyone that's at least in high school should be using a tool like this because there's just too much reading that we have to do that is laborsome, right? It's not fun reading. It's not like reading novels where we're just so excited to find out what's happening in the story that we can continue doing it. It usually requires a lot of effort, and this can really make it much more of a breeze. And you know, if anytime you can take away some of the pain of learning, wow, it's worth it. So I know some of the girls talked about what their experiences were with Point Avenue, and I showed you guys today, right, some of the ways that we help students learn how to study better, more effectively. Some of the girls talked about their time management and organization that we've helped them to develop. So in addition to the applications stuff, we focus on these different areas with helping learn skills, develop character, which Natcha mentioned a bit through the camp. We also help students get involved in their community and to learn EQ, or emotional intelligence, right? So that can be things like your self-awareness, understanding yourself, knowing your emotions and what's motivating you, so that you can be more effective in developing strong relationships, having better social awareness of others, and having better communication. So all of these things combined really just help you to have a more fulfilling life and be more successful as human beings. And so that's really what we do here at Point Avenue. Now I want to open it up for any questions you guys might have. And also you viewers at home. So any questions for anyone based on anything? We can go ahead.
I have a question for the two students.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
That's a lot to do, and I commend you guys for, having that efficient time management to do it. But when do you find time to just be, to not be like go, 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 to just be,
Just be yourself.
not just be yourself, just to be still, just to be still. Because I think a lot of times when you go, 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 yes, it does bring us results, especially if you have great determination and grit, which seems like the both of you have. That's wonderful. But that also drives up your adrenaline and your cortisol.
Mm-hmm.
And when your body takes that, you get mentally tired, you will get burned out, no matter how successful you might be in life. So when do you just be like, to just still your mind? And also my second question is, what happens when the inner critic is like, I'm not good enough. I should have done better. Oh my gosh, how would so and so got a better grade? Like what, how could I have done that?
Okay, here. So the home viewers can see you here, Natcha. Over here.
To answer that question, I think for me, I always try to make free time for myself, just to be myself. Sometimes I just lock myself in my room and start writing music or writing like a daily journal. I think that really helps with self-expression. But also with, I think, the issue with some students that might be who might be, I guess, stressed about all these activities that they're doing and might be mentally worn out. I think it's important to have a supportive family, and parents. My parents help me so much through like all my burdens and all my problems, and they also help me, I think, with managing myself when I can't do it alone. I always feel like I have someone to rely on, and I think like the parents are a really important factor to a child's mental health, and also I think just us trying to be ourselves and being able to express to our parents. I think that's really important as well.
Okay, so yeah, I agree with Natcha, and yeah, in addition, like for me, I spend time like doing exercise with friends, like going around, jogging around school with my friends, and maybe talking, exchanging about our problems together. Like when we are stressed, we exchange, and it just felt like better. And I also talk with my parents too. And apart from that, I think being mindful is also important. You have to know yourself that you are like right now you are going to burn out. You feel stressed. You have to be mindful with your body. Like if you are feeling like a headache, you have to I think I need to have a break. And then after that, I just go and take some breaks, like maybe watching some Netflix. And another thing is like you can reward yourself after you are doing something. You have finished something. Like for example, for me, if I finish like applying to one university, I will just watch like a series or something like that. Like after this one, I'll take a break, like 1 day break. And do nothing on that day, and it's like kind of refreshing.
you let your inner self critic get to you? My second question is like, yeah, when you fail or something, do you that little voice like, oh, I should have done that? Oh.
Let me restate it just for our home viewers, because so the first question that was asked was how do you have that free time? How do you what do you do to just not be constantly go go go? Then our second question is, does the inner critic get to you, and how do you deal with that? How do you manage that?
Okay, maybe I'll go first. So, for me, before this, yeah, sometimes yes, but right now I think no, because I just felt like, yeah, when I do something, I do it like, yeah, my best already, and even if I go back in time, I would still like do it the same because I just do it like my best already. So, yeah, even if the results did not come out as planned, I think, yeah, there's nothing that I can do much other than that. Yeah, so it's nothing much about inner critics.
I think I'm quite the opposite of that, because when I get something wrong, I feel really guilty about it, and I really want to get it right. And sometimes, like, okay, if I know that I'm really not able to do it, then I'll tell myself, like, it's okay, move on from it and find something that you can do, or challenge yourself to something that you know you can do, but maybe you can't do at the moment. But if it's something that I know I'm capable of doing, or sometimes I might underestimate myself, and my parents or my friends tell me, yo, Natcha, like, just get up, you can do it, and I believe in you. I feel like those people around you who support you, and also your own mentality, really helps pushing through that inner critic and being like, you know what, you're wrong, because I can do this and I'm going to do it. So yes, it might come as an issue at some times, but to get over it, I think, is something that's challenging, but it has to be overcome.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that we usually try to focus on, so one of our ethos here, like Natcha mentioned, is maximum effort, not maximum results, right? So we try to redraw that attention to the effort that you put in, and feeling the pride in what you did, that effort, not feeling the pride in the outcome, because we can't always control the outcomes of life, right? But we can control the effort that we put in. And even to like address your first question where you talked about like, how do you have downtime? I think one of the things, it's about capacity building, right? So it's part of what both girls had talked about with their time management and organization strategies. It increases your capacity of what you can do. So it doesn't always feel like I'm just like go, 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 constantly running and stressed. It kind of tends to feel like, at least, speaking from my own experience of leading a similar academic lifestyle, it feels like you've got a very full life because you've built that capacity, right? You've developed the strategies to where you can effectively manage all these things. So it doesn't feel stressful. But when you don't have that capacity, when you don't have the right strategies, trying to do so much and accomplish so much can feel amazingly stressful. So really it's about the capacity building. But on top of it, we do, work with a lot of our students on meditation and mindfulness and like having that, because it's so important in life.
I think also with like when you said go, 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 all the activities that I do, I really enjoy, and I enjoy them on a level where I don't feel like it's work anymore. I feel like it's just something I genuinely enjoy to do. For example, my 4 sports, like, although that might seem a lot to so many people, but when you're enjoying it and you're in the moment, it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't build up any stress or pressure. It actually takes off that stress and pressure. And I feel like doing all the activities that I do is just me enjoying myself and my life at this point, and not really trying to achieve other people's expectations, but instead setting my own goals and reaching that myself.
So I think follow on that is good. Just yes, you might have a lot of activities, but be sure to pick activities on your parents pick for you, because you truly feel like this is me. This is who I am.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it because everybody else is doing it because it looks good on an application for college or boarding school. You truly enjoy it. You're embracing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay if your parents pick for you at a really young age, because when you don't really know what you want to do yet. But if you don't enjoy it, then be straightforward to your parents, right? So for all the students here, like, be aware that you also have a voice. This is your life, and you can stand up to your parents, right? Parents, they're supposed to be there to support you. So I think they'll understand if you don't want to do something, and just express that to them.
Well, so, leading into, for both of you guys, with your experience working with our mentors here, what's probably one of the first things that we did with you guys about figuring out activities?
I didn't really have that issue.
Okay, you had enough activities, okay.
Let me think. So first I was being immersed into chemistry all day long, but then I just found that I'm quite interested in education. I know that I like chemistry because I like the teacher that taught me. He taught it quite fun, so it's fun to learn. And I think that if everyone can enjoy learning like how I am, that would be great. So that is, I think it's the beginning point that made me become interested in education. Yeah, so I just kind of founded the club and be the president and of the Khan Academy for Thais and do the K-Wisdom Club to make other people enjoy learning like I am. Yeah, and Point Avenue also helped me on this part. I talked with Yuki on how to manage a 60-member club and how I should manage the time, how I should plan the timetable for the club, some kind like that, and talk about the problems that can occur in the club almost every week about the K-Wisdom Club.
Yeah, and usually when we first start working with students, we'll have them do an interest survey and a strength analysis, and get them to be very introspective so that they're figuring out, they're not doing stuff because there's no such thing as this ideal student. I know a lot of people have this mindset that there's an idea in my mind about this perfect student who gets into Harvard, Stanford, and Yale and all the perfect schools, and they have to look this particular way. That student does not exist. That is a fiction of our imaginations. Instead, what we want to do and what we help students do is we help them to figure out who they want to become, what they enjoy doing, and we do it through exploration so that they're kind of reshaping their interests around the things that they really love to do and that give them energy rather than drain their energy. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Okay, so this question is from home. What are supercurricular and or extracurricular that Pakwhan did to prepare for applying to Cambridge?
For Cambridge, the curriculum, the things activities that I chose is not actually for Cambridge because right then I don't actually know where I would like to study. Actually, I just pinned for the US parts more than Cambridge, but I just maybe think that maybe I'll try to apply to Cambridge too. So I don't know if my activities is for Cambridge or not, but for UK studies, I think if you like some subjects, really like some subject, you have to go deep down into that subject. So for example, I applied for chemical engineering and biotechnology in Cambridge. So I have some of my activities in chemistry, like the ICHO or ICHTO, and also my projects, and everything can be written in my personal statement for Cambridge. So it's quite helpful if you have a focus, if you want to get into UK universities. Yeah.
What were some of your key standout extracurriculars, do you think?
For Cambridge, if it's for Cambridge, I think it's ICHO because I have to go to camps for every semester breaks for 2 years to prepare for the ICHO. And another thing,
can you tell everyone what ICHO is, just in case? Can you tell everyone what ICHO is?
ICHO is International International Chemistry Olympiad. Yeah, it's the Olympiad. Yeah, so I have to go into selection camps and prepare and learn about deep chemistry subjects and also do the laboratories. And apart from ICHO, I think I have done the ICHTO and became the team captain. So I can show the leadership part in my personal statement. Yeah, also.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question for Pakwhan. No, my question.
Okay.
Sorry. I think your academic achievement is very high. You get a 4 GPA, which I think Cambridge has. How you receive looking for that is a mind map of your history, intention on all of you have done for your learning.
So you're saying because she
achieved very high GPA, she get 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is normally top university looking for that, the academic achievement. So it's the map history of her intention to study.
To study at Cambridge?
No,
Oh, it did.
it's all the result is the result of what she had.
Oh.
Achievement on intention.
So she's asking, were you going in it with thinking, okay, I've got to get this perfect 4.0, or was it a result of everything?
For what my question is, can you tell me the
ภาษาไทยไหม
ภาษาไทยก็คือโรงเรียนพวกนี้เขา looking for GPA ระดับนี้อยู่แล้วซึ่งมันเป็นผลจากความตั้งใจเรียนของน้องที่ contribute มาในทุกๆ step ที่มาถึงวันที่มี GPA 4.0 นี่พี่จะถามน้องว่าการที่น้องเรียนมาได้ถึง 4.0 เนี่ย how you done to be at this point
how I learn
how
like
you achieve your academic excellence.
Can you restate the question in English for everyone? I know, but everyone at home needs to know what we're...
Okay, so it's about how, okay, so in summary, how I achieved like 4.0 GPA from the starting point. Yeah. So since primary school, I have learned like, mostly I learned with my parents, not learning like outside studies, because like my parents also taught me about how I can manage my time or how I plan like the schedule for learning for each day. Like for example, when I was in primary school, I had like some learning with my dad for like 10 hours per week. Yeah. Since like primary school, we had some schedule, and in like secondary schools, we also have like the schedules like this. And right then I have to like practice like managing like my own schedule, like what subjects do I have to learn or what contents do I want to learn, and I just sat there with my father and learn the subjects like together. And if I have some questions, I'll just ask him. And I think by doing this, by having the discipline, like working like constantly, learning constantly with discipline, with like an actual hours of doing and tracking my own progress. That I think that part can help me in learning and getting like 4.0 GPA like since like primary school until now.
One of the factors is from your family support also.
Yeah, family support, and I think about practicing on discipline.
How you, because you interested in chemistry, how you find like you explore yourself that you like chemistry and education. This is an initiative of yourself, or how you find what your passion.
So to restate the question, it was, how did you find your passion for chemistry and education?
For chemistry, to be honest, is not that of my is actually not my passion. Like right now, I'm not that into chemistry. This is like, and I'm going to find myself later on, like in college, whether which subjects or what fields do I like. But for chemistry, it came from like the 4.0 or like POSN, where I have to take the test, and all of my friends right then were taking like the test for the camps, and I chose chemistry because I think that maybe I should try something new, because before that I liked to do like physics, and I changed into chemistry and just tried something new. And after that, after I get into camp, I have to like study like quite a lot, so I have to immerse myself into the subject, and I just became interested in, I think it's more on the process of learning, of knowing more things. I think I'm interested in that part more than the subject, more than the chemistry subject itself. And I think from that thing made me interested in education later on, after I finished like all the chemistry things, all the chemistry competitions.
Okay, so we do have another question from the home viewers for Natcha. What advice for younger kids do you have for them to do well in middle school?
In middle school? Okay. So I think middle school is basically like preparation for high school. And the only thing I can say to middle schoolers right now, I think, is just to enjoy yourself and have fun. Like, it's not that high school isn't fun, but in middle school, you have a lot of like, you're still finding the right spot in between who you are, right? You're in the middle of the transition between elementary school, your younger form, to like high school, your older, more mature form, right? So have fun with it, explore and play around, go into different cliques, like make a lot of friends, I think, and also just explore yourself. Middle school is the perfect time to do so many activities, play around with what you like and what you don't, right? So for example, like I started playing volleyball and tennis seriously when I got to middle school. So I think like there's no rush to find yourself in middle school, but definitely start exploring what you like and don't like. I also got into a lot of like science and math in middle school. So, and that led on to my high school life. And I think just that exploration, it needs to be done in middle school and elementary school as well, I think. And yeah, so it doesn't really matter about your grades in middle school because, okay, yes, if you're applying to boarding school, they might be looking for that. And do be aware of your academic achievements. But it's more important that you understand what you like and who you want to be. And I think just trying to explore. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. So I think she's onto something really great there. School can kind of kill our love for learning sometimes, right? There's so much emphasis on doing well on tests and getting the grades. And that can be really disheartening for kids because we're natural learners, right? We're learning from the day we're born. I mean, even before, I guess. But it's something that's like so natural for us, and getting the kids involved in activities that they want to do, that they get to explore, can really help them like keep that love of learning alive. And I think that's one of the most important things at that age, is making sure that they are on their own, of their own initiative, on their own time, pursuing education. Because if their only idea of education is what they're getting in school, they're typically not getting a great experience with education, because school can kind of be a little bit soul crushing sometimes.
Yeah. I think also for parents, try not to pressure your children too much in middle school, because they're still in that adolescent age where they're changing and they're trying to find themselves. They're still confused with themselves as well. So I think having a balance with, yes, you should try to keep your grades up, and I guess try like put effort in school and understand what you're learning on a deeper level and understand why you're learning as well. So I think parents also play an important factor for middle school kids, but also yourself and your own mindset. Yeah.
Great. We had one other question for Pakwhan. What AP subjects did you study for?
For AP, it's like I'm actually in like Thai curriculum school, so it's like I have to study AP on semester breaks by myself. So I took like 8 APs on the at the end of 10th grade. I took chemistry and physics 1, and another 6 at the end of the 11th grade. I took like physics 2 and physics C, E&M physics C, mechanics, and biology, statistics, and what else? And yeah, psychology. Psychology is just for fun because I just kind of wanted to know more on that subject. And so yeah, I just learned that just for fun. Yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing. So I do want to share with you guys all that, we talked about some of this stuff like the leaders camps. We do have an experience. Let me go back. We do have an experience day for the leader camp that's coming up next weekend on Sunday for you to get kind of a day feel of what it will be like at the summer leaders camp. So if you're interested, that would be a really great opportunity to go and test it out. And we have 3 different sessions for the Summers Leader Camp this summer. The first one's gonna be starting June 11th. So those are up on the docket, so please join us next Sunday. And some other upcoming events that we have, we've got a debate program for summer, for public speaking, debate for starters, and a debate boot camp. So lots of fun stuff coming up. Interesting ways to go and try something new, develop some skills, and they're a lot of fun. Like they're not high pressure, stressful stuff. They're a lot of fun. So if you don't have us, for your home audience, you can go ahead and add us online. And thank you all for coming today.